Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm checking out the X73S jumper. This is from Banggood.com and it is a brushless micro. It's a one cell brushless micro and this thing is just so tiny. It is a updated version, I guess, to the X73, which I reviewed on the channel and was a little bit hit and miss. That one had brushed motors, but as you can see here we have got tiny 1103 10,000 kV motors, but they are attached in a very strange way. You can see that the motor spins on this side of the frame here, and they have taken the center pin and reversed it, and that goes through the top. Now it's an interesting design, however it does cause some problems because you can see there, if you just want to take it off on say the carpet or the bed, then the motors get caught up in that. But apart from that, as soon as you're up in the air, that shouldn't be a problem. So we have got these proprietary blades here. You can buy them as spares, but they do just sit over the top. They're kind of like tiny whoop style blades, so four-leaf blades there. There's no other information on it. In fact, there's not a lot of information on this guy in general. You're not given any instructions or anything like that. So we have got a Naze 32 flight controller in there, and that means it's an F1 board, but that's fine because I can never tell the difference. And then we have tiny 3.5 amp BL Heli ESC, so not BL Heli S, and this thing weighs just 32 grams in this form factor, which is just incredible really. So we also have this all-in-one camera up the top here, and you are not given a band with it, and I will explain that. You can see there that it has got a detachable sleeve dipole antenna there, which I like. However, it sort of flops around the place. And then the FreeSky receiver here, it has a very long antenna, and out of the box this just sticks straight through the props. So I've taken a band there and just moved those both up the top there. Another problem that I found with this is that this looks like it's going to break really easily. It came like this out of the box, and there's definitely a weakness there. If I bend it, oh, that's definitely going to snap. I'm going to have to replace that. So this is a 1S model, and you aren't given a battery with it. In fact, you aren't given a lot with it, but I'm going to be using one of these 600 milliamp batteries that you get given with the Eachine QX series. That fits nicely. Now they say it takes a 450 milliamp battery, but this is a 600, so I'll see how it carries it with that. It weighs just 50 grams with this battery and everything, so that's pretty amazing really. Something that can happen when the battery is placed in, and that can be either side really, because everything's so close together. You can see that the cable here, when it's plugged in, it does come into contact with the motor, and you sort of have to push it out of the way, otherwise that's going to burn something out. So something else that I'm not happy with, and it was the same with the brushed version, is how they attach the camera. So the way that they do it is they have like a nylon bolt going through here, but it doesn't work. And you can see the first time I went outside and flew this and crashed it, it pinged off, never to be seen again, and it actually does nothing. So you're better off just leaving it out because the camera stays in place. The idea is, of course, that you can angle the camera and use the bolt to secure it in, but that just doesn't work for me. The first crash you have, it's gone, and mine's gone already here, sadly. So you can put a cable tie around this though, and that secures it in, but cable ties more weight. I want to keep this lightweight, so I'm going to risk it and keep it off. So pretty much any one cell battery will fit in this holder. Some of them are a little bit thinner, but you tend to find that they are pretty much all the same size. So that slides in there nicely. So let's see what else you get in the package. Now you get given these ducts, which is nice, but I wish they were attached to the model, because you are gonna have to take the props off and then remove the motors to get this on, which I think is a shame, because this just weighs like a gram or so. I think they should have just included it, and it doesn't seem that strong, so I think I'm gonna fly without it today. But yeah, you're given that, and then you're given this little USB FTDI adapter, and that's it. Nothing else. Well, you have the box, which is exactly the same box that the X73 came in, and nothing else. So if you want to configure Betaflight, so yeah, it comes with Betaflight, this one version 3.01, which is a nice stable version actually, so I'll be keeping that the same. And then this is just a little Pico connector that plugs into there. Make sure you get the pins the right way around, and then that goes into the computer like that. We've also got a bootloader button as well, which is nice in case it gets bricked. And then we have got a bind button here as well for your FreeSky transmitter. So speaking of the transmitter, today I'm going to be using this guy. This is the Taranis Q X7, and I'm just testing it out today, so I'll be doing a full review on this guy. But the way that you bind this is pretty easy, and you can have it going out of the box, but you are going to need to go in Betaflight if you're using a Taranis of any kind, because it's set up as AETR in Betaflight, and the Taranis is TAER. So that's the only thing that I found that you needed to change out of the box. And of course, to bind it, you stick the Taranis in bind mode. It chirps away there, and then hold down the bind button on here, plug in the battery and unplug it, come out of bind mode, and then it was bound for me, no problems. You don't have to set any modes up. However, in this flight I'm going to have arming on a 2-position switch, and then I'm going to have my modes on a 3-position switch here. So without further ado, let's go and take it for a fly and see how it performs. Okay, let's go for a fly. It is raining, of course, it's always raining. Let's go for a punch. The punch is pretty crazy, which is expected for a brushless model. I would say that it has more punch than a brush model. Now I'm going to be sensible here and keep it in angle mode, because it's raining and it's snowing, and that's not a good combination for any of this. But I have to say, I like how this thing is flying. It's zippy, it's fast, and it's brushless. So is Brushed in trouble? Well, it could be. I mean, I think Brushed will always have a place because of the safety aspect. But the technology is getting so crazy now with brushless motors. Maybe this is the year for the micro brushless model. Who knows, perhaps we won't see brush models anymore. Oh, the weather's so horrible. Let's come in for a landing and see if I can do some FPV. So despite the rain, despite the snow, I decided to go for a quick FPV flight outside anyways, and you'll see these LEDs turn off there, and that is me going into acro mode. So it's not something I've talked about, but there are some LEDs by the motors, and they light those propellers up really nicely. So I did really like that about it. Now, as I say, sadly it's raining. I don't recommend flying this in rain or snow whatsoever, but I really wanted to see how it was flying, and it flew really well. It does need some tuning. It definitely needs the eye gain bumping up, but it didn't fall out of the sky. It was pretty locked in. So yeah, I really like this model, and the flight time was really good as well. I was getting a 5-minute flight time, which I was surprised about because it's just a 1-cell battery, and a 5-minute flight time is what you will get out of a brushed model at this size. So yeah, we've got more power, we've got brushless motors, so they aren't going to wear out as quickly as brushed motors, even though to date I'm yet to have a brushed motor wear out on me, but people say that when they push theirs they do. So yeah, I have to give a thumbs up for this quadcopter. It does have its flaws. It has the problem with the camera, that bolt just pings off, and it has the problem as well, you will see here, I'm trying to come in for a landing and those motors underneath just spinning, they do get in the way of the takeoff and also the landing. You have to make sure that you disarm really quickly. So I decided to go for a flight indoors, and I just couldn't get it to take off, so I did a hand launch. I held it with my hand and then just threw it, because on the floor those motors would just get in the way and it would give the impression that there was a problem, like it started spinning around on the floor, but it's not. It's just because one of the motors is getting bogged down and it wouldn't take off. So I know that we have that stand underneath, which is meant to sort of free the motors off the ground, but in reality that doesn't happen because we have those cables from the battery, and the cables from the battery are long and they stick out and they protrude further than the stand underneath that it's meant to sit on, and it just doesn't sit flat, and therefore the motors get caught. Now, one thing you'll notice is I have added the ducts on here as well. You can see them in shot there, and you have to remove all of the motors to get the ducts on. It's not like a huge thing, but it is something that you have to do. It probably took me about 15 minutes to do, and once the ducts were on, the propellers came very close to the ducts as well. I found that I sort of had to stretch the ducts a little bit to move them away from the propellers, and also if you press the propellers down quite firmly, then they will get stuck in the plastic mold of the ducts as well. It sort of sits against the motor. But the propellers, they sit on quite firmly on that metal shaft there. So if you don't press them all the way down, then you won't have a problem. But yeah, there was some things to consider when sticking the ducts on, and I didn't really notice any difference in the flight performance. In fact, flying indoors, it flew fantastic. And I found that I could bash into things with these ducts, and they didn't break. They're quite flexible. They feel weak, but they didn't break. So another thing that I was happy with was the camera quality. The picture is hardly breaking up, and you can see that it's going through a couple of rooms here with no problems. Now, there's no information on how many channels this camera has, just like the X73, the brushed version that I had. And I think the reason why you don't get an instruction manual, a battery, and loads of spare propellers is they are trying to get the price down. So this one, I think it's sat at about £78, something like that. I'll put a link in the description, of course, because the prices change all of the time. But I think to get the price down, they have excluded a printed manual and a battery and a prop remover and things like that to get the price down. So I already have batteries, so that's not a problem for me. And yeah, it did take a little bit of time to figure it out. You know, there's no instructions showing you the Betaflight setup or anything like that, and if you didn't know to switch the channel map to TAER, then that could get you stuck straight away. But I have to say, I really enjoyed flying this model, and it does need some improvements, don't get me wrong, but the bare bones are there for a good flying model, which is more than I can say for the brushed version, because I was using a low C battery with that model and I was getting brownouts And if you're not sure what a brownout is, it's basically when you're flying around and there's not enough current there to power up the receiver, and the receiver was cutting out. But look how I'm able to thread the needle around here. It was really accurate to fly, and it never felt dangerous at all, even when I was doing the hand launch. These are very tiny motors, and I never felt like it was going to chop off the end of my fingers or anything like that. Of course, there's more power there than a brushed motor, but not a huge amount. And I think that is the key there, and I think it's also the key to the flight time as well, is that it's not drawing a huge amount of power from that battery, just a little bit more than a brushed motor. And of course you've got that reliability and that extra punch as well. I'd be interested to see how it would perform on maybe a tri-blade or something like that, because the performance between this and a brushed model wasn't huge, but it could be seen. So there you go. I have flown until the battery has ran out. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.